Hello, my fellow DC fans. My name is Admiral, and I just got home from watching The Flash. This movie is said to be the greatest DC film ever made by the new head of DC Studios, James Gunn, in practically all professional opinions. Is that the case? Well, we're about to find out. As always, you're watching the Hall of Justice, so if you like what you see here and you want to see more from me, then don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content just like this one. So, the biggest question you all probably have for me is it a good movie? Does this movie satisfy me, as a massive fan of The Flash as a character? Is this DCU flick the greatest DC superhero movie ever made? Well, I wouldn't go that far. I still think the title of Best DC Flick goes to The Dark Knight, and the best DCU movie is tied between either Man of Steel or Zack Snyder's Justice League. But, is this a good movie? Yes. Better than I was expecting, honestly. Now, this is where we're going to get into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, please do so, as it's well worth your time. I'm going to try to be as fair as I can, and point out what worked and what didn't for me. These aren't going to be separate sections, more so this good, this bad. Please skip to this timestamp if you want to know my spoiler-free thoughts. So, let's get on to it. So the movie opens with a fittingly fast-paced logo sequence, and Barry Allen is at a coffee shop trying to get a hamburger. He's late for work and he needs it fast. Really fast. Suddenly, he gets a call from Alfred explaining that there's a bank robbery going on in Gotham City, and that the citizens need him. He would have called Henry Cavill's Superman to help out, but he's kind of preoccupied at the moment. We have this admittedly really awesome action scene between Ben Affleck's Batman and the Flash. Now, I really like this action sequence. It's well choreographed, kinetic, the music is on point, and Batfleck is just as awesome as he was in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which this is an obvious sequel to, by the way. We have this really cool moment where the Flash taps into the Speed Force to save some babies from a collapsing building. Now, a big complaint that these scenes get is that they look unfinished and too rubbery. I honestly don't mind, as I knew going in that this was an intentional choice on the part of Andy Muschietti to make the Speed Force realm look like this Waterworld type thing. The only thing that I think lets the action down CGI-wise, however, is the lighting. Specifically on Batfleck's costume. What happened here? Now, I don't have much pictures or footage of it, so you just have to take my word for it. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The blue costume just doesn't look good on him. This is a problem I had with Justice League, and I don't know what happened to this bat suit. The cowl just doesn't look as good, and we actually got a full view of the costume when Wonder Woman saves him. That's when I was like, get the costume designer from Justice League back, look how they massacred my boy. But the action scene as a whole was a fantastic opener if you're willing to let those minor nitpicks slip by you. Later in the day, Barry goes to his workplace and his boss tells him to let the whole case go. If you'll remember from Justice League, Henry Allen was wrongly convicted for the murder of Nora, who is Barry's mom. This is actually a very important plot point that drives the film. More so the murder itself than the incarceration, but that too actually comes back near the end. So Barry calls his dad after a heated conversation with Iris West, and begins to reminisce about his childhood upon visiting his old home. We then get a conversation between Barry and Batman, and the latter warns him about traveling back in time after Barry supposedly mentions that he could time travel. The transition to the scene was a little jarring. I think that was because of the Steppenwolf part being removed in post. The Snyderverse reference removal was to be believed. Does Barry heed Batfleck's advice? No, of course not! Otherwise the movie wouldn't happen. It's not the best way for the character to go out in concept, getting his advice ignored by someone younger than him, but I actually like the way he exits the film in practice. Barry is told he's going to see him again, which we as the audience know won't happen, and it leaves a feeling of uncertainty for this character's future, as well as leave the door open for him to potentially return if there's ever another multiverse movie. Barry begins to obsess over the evidence he has, and after inviting Iris into his apartment, he realizes that he can save his mother's life by just altering one tiny little detail. Oh boy, if only he knew the consequences of what that was gonna do. So he travels back to time to the moment his mother was killed, and places a box of tomatoes in his mother's shopping cart at the shopping mall. See, what got Nora Allen killed in the first place was that she had to go back to the mall to get a box of tomatoes. That ended up causing her death. So with just one tiny little detail change, Barry runs back to his present, but is knocked out of the Speed Force unexpectedly at the wrong time by a mysterious speedster. He ends up back in 2013 around the time of Man of Steel's events, and he runs into his younger self. From there, the film kind of becomes a buddy road trip movie for a bit, with Barry recreating the accent that gave him his powers in order to give his younger self powers, but as a result, he ends up losing his own powers as a result. So 2013 Barry goes on a hilarious rampage through the city with his newfound abilities, and that convinces present-day Barry that maybe he needs to teach his younger self a little bit about how to beat the Flash. But uh-oh, as he's teaching his younger self how to use his powers, the main conflict of the movie gets going. None other than General Zod is arriving to terraform Earth as he did in Man of Steel. Michael Shannon has stated that reprising his role as Zod wasn't fulfilling for him as an actor, as he didn't get to do much, and yeah, you can definitely tell in the final product. If you were a fan of General Zod in Man of Steel, and you thought he was the highlight, don't go expecting him to leave a lasting impression in this film. His brutality was also a lot more toned down. You can definitely feel the loss of Zack in that department, as well as the climactic action sequence. But for the little screen time he gets, he is an intimidating presence, and what he does later in the climax certainly cements that. Present-day Barry realizes he has to put the Justice League together in order to stop Zod, and as he's researching them, he gets some interesting insight as to where the Justice League are in this alternate timeline. Spoiler alert, they don't exist. Wonder Woman is a dance performer. Superman's supposedly been captured by the Russian government. Victor Stone isn't even cyborg yet. And Aquaman is a dog? Okay, I got a good laugh out of that. The only person who exists here is Batman. You all know what's coming if you've seen all the promotion. Both Barry sneak into Wayne Manor where they're attacked by a disheveled-looking Bruce Wayne. As they talk over food, Bruce makes an analogy using spaghetti to explain the timeline, and that's actually very interesting. I do question how Michael Keaton's Batman knew about time travel, but okay, I'll let it slide. I did get the Avengers Endgame vibe of everything you learned about time travel is BS in one part, and that made me laugh. Once they explain Superman to him, Bruce initially refuses to help as he's since retired as Batman after the events of Batman Returns, and he's reluctant to help. Eventually, however, Barry's able to convince him to a very heartfelt conversation, but before that, we get some bonding between the two versions of Barry. I like how majority of this movie is focused on the bond between the two versions of Barry Allen, and the little argument they share was honestly heartbreaking to see. We know Barry's holding back from explaining the truth about his mom's death to his younger self, and that comes back into play later in the film. The genuine bond they share makes the twist around the third act gut-wrenching. I'll get to that soon. So Bat Keaton then agrees to help in what I think is the best scene in the movie.
I'll help you get this Superman. Then, you're on your own.
You are, and
Yeah. I'm Batman.
Oh, I love it so much. All the screen time we get with Michael Keaton's iteration of the character feels very well earned, and the bond he shares with Barry is really genuine. This felt like a Batman 3 at several points. The lighting in the Batcave, several parts of the action scenes, it really felt like something straight out of the Tim Burton movies. They travel to Siberia to save Kal-El, only to find his cousin Kara Zor-El instead. Now let me say that I absolutely love this iteration of Supergirl. Unlike her cousin, she doesn't fully trust humans after what they did to her by trapping her for years, and she has to learn to open up and fight for mankind on her own. There's this deep vulnerability hidden underneath all this immense strength that I think makes this version of the character a fantastic iteration. This really feels to me, at least until we get the DCU Supergirl movie, the definitive version of the character. My only problem with the movie is that we don't get nearly enough time to know her. Like, she flies off after saying she doesn't trust humans, then she just comes back about 5 minutes later. It felt like a ton of scenes that pertain to her arc were just left on the cutting room floor, and it just makes her return a bit jarring. Like, I love this version of the character, and Sasha Calle does an outstanding job portraying her, but I wanted to know this Supergirl more. I think it's because Sasha Calle did such a fantastic job that I want more. And there's this great story for her here that it just didn't capitalize on. There's a fantastic character study here that the film didn't take advantage of, and they just blew it. Or maybe they did put those scenes in and they were just deleted. Hashtag release the machete cut. We get plenty of screen time for the two Barrys, plenty of screen time for Bat Keaton, but not enough screen time for Sasha Calle's Supergirl, and that is just really unfortunate. Moreover, I hope the planned sequel happens so we get more of her. The written script is said to bring her back to life, so please WBD, get on this. But it is good that she comes back though. Bride intends to fly Barry up into the sky to get struck by lightning. This attempt succeeds in restoring his powers, and now it's time for the final battle. The climax is admittedly really cool, but a far cry from Man of Steel's absolutely incredible action, let's be real. Batman provides area support with the Batwing while the two Barrys team up and Supergirl fights Zod. I like this action sequence a whole lot, though having it take place in the desert was never going to be as cool as two Titans tearing it up through Metropolis while everything explodes around them. That was way more appealing to me, but for the climax it's really good. The Speed Force action is fantastic, especially the use of Tornado. Whenever Bat Keaton and Supergirl on screen, they absolutely steal the show. The only thing I can criticize about the climax on its own merits is the use of the pop song during it. Like, what the heck? This isn't meant to be funny, is it? Imagine Superman is fighting Zod, and instead of the phenomenal iconic score playing, we instead get this. I wish the actual score played during this climax instead of the pop song, and it just doesn't fit and sounds so out of place. The mood doesn't fit either, but the action kicks into high gear when Zod reveals that he intercepted Kal-El's pod and harvested his genes. This gets Supergirl to fly into a rage, and she starts beating Zod up until he unexpectedly stabs her to death. Batman also dies from impaling the Batwing into Zod's ship. This is where things get really emotional, as younger Barry can't accept that his two best friends are dead, and travels back in time a couple moments to save them. He fails, of course, and we get a really good final moment between present Barry and Bat Keaton before he passes on for a second time. Younger Barry tries again and again, as present Barry tries to stop him. We get another heart-to-heart between them in the Speed Force, as the truth about Nora's death is finally revealed. We then get a really chilling reveal as to who the unknown speedster is, as he begins to fight present-day Barry. It's Dark Flash, also known as an older version of younger Barry, who kept trying to save Batman and Supergirl for years and years. Present-day Barry realizes that he has to undo his mother's survival in order to fix things, and the multiverse begins to collapse in on itself. This is where we get the most talked about scene in the movie, the Speed Force scene. We get Nicolas Cage as Superman, George Reeves as Superman, Christopher Reeves as Superman, Helen Slater as Supergirl, like so much stuff. Is it kind of pointless? I mean, yeah, but I like the scene's inclusion as a sort of celebration of DC's history. That was what the movie was marketed as, so yeah, I like it. It's pointless nostalgia baiting, but I can't say I didn't have my jaw drop during it. Also, if I was to criticize anything about Dark Flash, he doesn't really do anything? No, really. He just stands there in one place and monologues about saving Batman and Supergirl. So yeah, he was underutilized, and normally that would get me mad if he was the primary villain, but the main villain is General Zod anyway, so I'm willing to accept it for now. So younger Barry sacrifices himself to stop Dark Flash by erasing him from the timeline, and present-day Barry travels back in time to undo what he did. We get this really emotional moment between Barry and his mother, and I'm not gonna lie, I was crying during this moment. Even while writing this script, I'm getting really emotional. This is where the themes of love and loss hit its peak, and it's an amazing scene filled with so much heart that just wrecked me to my core. Whenever this film focuses on Barry's grief, the fact that he has to let his mother go, is phenomenal. If I was making this movie, I'd probably lean into the emotional core a lot more, but I think that part of the movie was given enough weight to make the landing here stick. Barry undoes his previous action, but he puts the tomatoes on the top shelf instead, therefore messing with the timeline again accidentally, and providing an alibi for Henry in the present. So the film ends with Barry back in his own timeline, right? Not exactly. His father does get exonerated in an incredibly cathartic moment, and Iris asks him out on a date right afterwards. He then gets a call from Bruce Wayne. Only this is not Ben Affleck's Batman, this is George Clooney's Batman. Okay. Look, I'm not mad at this cameo. It's incredibly hilarious, but I'm just surprised if anything. So this is where Barry's at now apparently, which doesn't make any sense, as common sense and knowledge of the Flashpoint comic would dictate that he ends up in James Gunn's new DCU timeline. And we know the Schumacher-verse isn't the new DCU, so what was the point of this ending? Aside from teasing Aquaman 2 in a post-credit scene with the drunk Arthur Curry, what exactly did this ending accomplish for James Gunn's grand vision? I honestly have no clue. I guess Gunn wants a new Flash for the DCU and not Ezra's, so I'm willing to take it. As long as we get a sequel that explores this new reality more, I'm down for it. Right now, it's more of a curiosity than anything. I think that's what the ending wanted to give us as the audience. So, that was Andy Muschietti's The Flash. Pretty good movie. It's not a masterpiece, far from it, but there are parts in here that really work. The movie is comedy gold that keeps you laughing throughout the whole thing, specifically the hijinks that the two Barrys get into, but it also knows when to pull back and deliver genuinely heartfelt and emotional moments that just punch you in the gut. The love and reverence that filmmakers clearly have for Tim Burton's Batman movies are on full display whenever Michael Keaton's Batman gets any screen time. The action for the most part is incredibly entertaining and well made. The film is a visual spectacle, particularly when it showcases the Speed Force. The characters mostly get fantastic arcs, and the best one out of all of them comes from our main Barry. The performances are all fantastic, there's not a single dull one in here. The film overall is fast-paced as befitting of the title character. The themes of grief and loss are showcased in a very mature manner. They would propel the film from good to fantastic. If only the film could have fleshed out Supergirl a lot more, didn't put the pop song in the climax, and focused a bit more on Barry's relationship with his mother, made the ending a bit more relevant, then this film would have gotten a 10 out of 10, no contest. But as it stands, I have to go with a standard 7.5 out of 10 rating, as there's just too much good stuff in here that I didn't even mention that keep the small negatives from dropping it to a 7, 6, or 5. As a rational Snyderverse fan, this gets a definite recommend from me, but please go in with the correct expectations. It's not the best DC film ever made, and it's not even the best DCEU film as I stated prior, but it's still very well worth your time, and I invite you to see the film for yourself and form your own opinion, especially if you're a fan of Michael Keaton's iteration of Batman, or you're looking to teach your kid about the value of family. A fitting end for the Snyderverse and the mainline DCEU continuity.